We're having a conversation about caring for aging parents who have dementia. It's important to say that we are not doctors or experts in any way. We're just two daughters who found ourselves in a position where we are having to care for aging parents, and we were not prepared. Welcome to the channel where we like to discuss some of the challenges we face after 50. I'm Jo, and today we have a special guest who just happens to be my sister, Jackie. And one of the first things we discovered was there's no rule book. We were certainly unprepared. So our hope is that if we share some of our experiences and what we've learned along the way, it will help you with whatever path you are on with your parent right now. One of the first questions that comes up is, how do I know when it's dementia and not just normal aging? What were some of the first signs that you noticed when it came to observing our parents?
Our parents were always such vital, vibrant, confident, competent people. When they first started slipping up, I think we gave them a pass. We never expected that it was going to be dementia and not just normal aging, but certainly repeating things over and over.
Which can be just a sign of normal memory issues.
True, except when they relate it to you as though they've never told it to you before. And when you start nodding your head and going, oh, yeah, and they still don't pick up clues that they've already told you.
One of the things that my mother would do was buy some of the same groceries over and over again. We would open her pantry and there would be 8 jars of peanut butter. And then she would tell Jackie that she needed her to go to the store to get her some peanut butter.
And protein bars. She would tell everybody that I would not go get her protein bars when she had 6 or 7 boxes of them.
So those kind of issues are probably telltale signs.
Another true telltale sign was when Mama got lost driving.
Yes, that was traumatic.
In her hometown,
Which
is a tiny hometown where she has lived her entire life, and she was so panicked by that.
I remember another time that she panicked when she got to a grocery store and couldn't remember the way home. One of the clerks at the grocery store called you because they found your number in her wallet, which is a good tip. Keep
name
and number on their phone or their wallet so that if they get distressed or lost and someone's there to help them, they know who to contact. So Jackie was contacted and rushed over to get her and bring her home, thankfully. But that's just one of many examples.
Daddy also had dementia.
Yeah.
Totally different kind, but just as real and just as much of a challenge.
His dementia showed up in forgetting passwords, not writing them down. Every time he logged into an account,
we would have to change
his username and password because he couldn't remember it.
And he tried so many times it locked him out.
Yeah, and so that was a constant challenge.
Another thing that we noticed, they had trouble with their TV. We got calls all the time. Can you just come over? I don't know why it's doing this. It won't work. And then they would try different remotes to different TVs, and then by the time we got there, we weren't real sure which remote went with which TV, and it was always
And the same thing happened with their phones. There was something wrong with their phone. It would be a simple user error. So these are common things that you might begin to notice. Our mother was a computer whiz. I mean, she was a master genealogist. She had her spreadsheets for every organizational feat she ever tried to tackle, which were many. When she began having computer issues, that was a major tip-off, and that was probably the earliest I remember thinking, something's not quite right, because here this computer whiz was having trouble with the simplest of computer operations.
Burning food was another indication that something was going on beyond her control. I would walk into their house and be hit with the aroma of burnt toast.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
It got to the point.
Which Mama wasn't a great cook, so that wasn't necessarily out of the ordinary, but this was beyond that.
And it got to the point where Mama would try to air the house out if she knew that I was supposed to come by, And she would swear my daddy to secrecy as though I was not going to be able to tell that something had been burnt.
Yeah. We became very adept at checking the dates of food in the refrigerator. Mama would go to the grocery store and buy a seafood salad or something with a mayonnaise base. And if we weren't there to check on it, she may keep it for weeks, and they would eat out-of-date food sometimes.
Because after all, it was in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
It had to be good.
Yeah, they thought if it's refrigerated, it will stay fresh. And of course, we know 3 to 4 days is about it.
And also, we would get somewhere, whether it was a store like Target, a local restaurant that we had been to several times, and my mother's response would always be, well, I don't think I've ever been here before. What do they have here?
Yeah.
And a very good friend did give us the advice
Oh, yeah.
that when she says something like that, you just respond, they have everything you've ever wanted. Isn't it wonderful?
Isn't it wonderful became our mantra. Every time either one of them would express surprise at a familiar place, we would just say, isn't it wonderful? It was definitely one of the best pieces of advice we were given.
Along with, don't argue. You may have to remind, Mama, remember we had this appointment on Tuesday. I was taken off to come take. You don't say, yes, you did know this. You remind, don't argue, and don't ask, don't you remember?
Because they may not remember.
And then that
Probably
already
not.
puts them
On the
in a
defense.
defense.
Another thing that we began to notice was they would mix up their appointment times, dates, times. They were very meticulous about writing it on the calendar because they sensed they were losing control cognitively. So they would be meticulous about writing it down. It would just be in the wrong month.
Or they would second guess themselves.
Once you have determined that your parent may need more assistance or that they are no longer capable of living on their own, you've got some options. I wish, looking back on it now, that we could have afforded for my parents to have a full-time sitter. Of course, a full-time sitter is going to run you, where we lived, anywhere from $15 an hour to $24 or $25 an hour, depending on whether you're hiring a private sitter or a professional sitting service. So that's going to be anywhere from $10,000 to over $17,000 a month. And many people are just not in a position, even though that would have allowed them to stay in their home for longer. I regret that we couldn't do that, but that wasn't an option for us. So when we started thinking about assisted living, we're thinking this is a home that has assistance around the clock should they need it. Also, they provided utilities and 3 meals a day. So
And helped with medicine.
and help with dispense medicine, which was is another huge topic. And so it was a no-brainer for us to move them to assisted living as opposed to hiring a full-time sitter. The assisted living option is going to run anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 a month, which is still a lot, but way more affordable than a full-time sitter.
And we felt better about that, although we did engage sitters when Mama started falling a lot.
Yeah.
Even though she was in an assisted living situation. But the good thing about having them at a facility is if the caregiver is sick or doesn't show up that day, they have someone else to fill in.
Right. There's
Whereas
always
if
someone there.
If your private sitter gets sick, then you're the one who's having to
take off work.
Yeah.
Be aware that just because you may hire a professional sitting service, it doesn't mean they're going to provide sitters who have medical training. So that was another advantage of being in an assisted living situation. When you get to the point to where you're having to discuss hiring sitters and assisted living, you're going to have a crucial conversation with your parent.
And it's going to be hard. It's not going to go well.
It was extremely difficult for us, and in fact, it took us several attempts. I mean, we abandoned the discussion more than once before they ever acquiesced.
We actually talked to one parent about the other,
Yeah.
and then to the other about
Because
the
they
other one.
both could recognize the dementia in one another, just not in themselves. And so this is a sticky, tricky conversation to have.
Because you're flipping roles.
They've been the one in charge, they've been the authority your whole life, and now all of a sudden you're having to have some pretty direct conversations.
And you don't feel really qualified to make those decisions because there's not a rule book.
Right.
We'll discuss how to determine the level of care needed for your parent and continue our conversation about caring for parents with dementia in episode 3 of this series. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss a video.